Hi, welcome. I'm Tim Modise, and as always, we focus on growth, opportunities, and empowerment. And this time around, we're focusing on the government and the role that public institutions of funding can play in assisting South Africa's growth. And I will be talking to the Deputy Minister of Finance, Nhlanhla Nene, to talk to us about the role that these institutions can play in supporting the National Development Plan, as well as in growing the country's economy. Deputy Minister Nhlanhla Nene, you are the patron of ABSIP and you attended this event here tonight. What is the role of an organization such as ABSIP, to your mind, in the transformation of the financial services sector or of the economy overall?
Well, ABSIP plays an important role because, one, it's a forum for black professionals. And what I've actually found is that most of them are actually young black professionals, upcoming, some of them very experienced. And it is, for me, a forum and an organization that has played a role, as I referred to in my speech also with regards to the crafting of the Financial Sector Charter. They actually led that. But the area in which they play is an area which I think the playing field is still not level yet, but it has actually played a role in actually promoting and keeping a number of the black professionals in the securities and investment arena.
Now, we have different stakeholders in the economy, and others may view an organization such as ABSIP as a self-serving organization that advances the interests of only the professionals of its members, and that it really doesn't have any bearing on the scheme of things in the broader sense of the way one would define the economy.
If you look at how ABSIP have actually evolved, it actually serves also as an area of inspiration even to the young upcoming, because you will realize that we also have the student chapter. So it is important to actually create something that the young people aspire to. So it has created that in a big way. So for me, it provides that it occupies that space. Because at the end of the day, you will find that each organization will play in its own, but at the end of the day, all of them will make up a complete picture. But ABSIP plays in the area of professionals, yes, but in playing in the area of professionals, it is creating an environment of competitiveness and inspirational to the younger generation.
Now, you are very active in the public funding institutions as chairperson of the PIC, for instance, and the other DFIs. So you are very familiar with their work, and they have huge amounts of assets that they're under management. But are they as active as you'd like them to be, given the low growth rates that we are experiencing in South Africa?
I think we are, but again, the answer would also be say there is a lot that can still be done in that space. But as you know, that investments look for good returns, and when we look for good returns, we also want to invest in a responsible manner, and we ascribe to the ESG principles. Environment, social, and governance. So all those actually also act as a pillar of ensuring that our investment remains responsible, but at the same time plays into the developmental space of our economy. If you look at most of and there's also been very good coordination between the DFIs and the state-owned companies, because you would find that the DFIs, in their mix of asset classes, they would be investing in bonds, they'd be investing in equity, they would also be investing in property, but also there is an element of black economic empowerment in most of these. And I think all that remains now is for us to be able to measure the impact in a manner where we are able also to say, if the PIC plays in a particular space, what role can be played by the IDC? What role is being played, so that we do not have overlaps, but take advantage of synergies, complementarities, and making sure that we get optimum benefit out of the resources that they command.
Obviously, these institutions have got to be mindful of risk, just like any other financial institution, but the criticism leveled at them is that, in a way, their mandate seems to be confused. They're behaving more or less like the typical banks in South Africa, that they should be playing a lead role in directing how things go, by pulling the privately owned institutions on board in order to help the economy grow at a much faster pace than it's doing at the moment?
Yeah. Well, that's an important area, Tim, but you need to find the right balance between playing in the developmental space, but at the same time being able to be sustainable. So I'm not saying they should actually be focusing on profits, but in a way you should be, in order to be sustainable, you need reasonable returns. So, and that is where you find that at times they, play in the same space like commercial banks. And as you were talking about the land bank, one of the things that we were able to do with the land bank is to make sure that there is some level of cross-subsidization of the element of development funded by the commercial side of the bank. So where you make your returns on the commercial side, those returns are the ones that you also have to deploy in order to uplift the emerging ones. That's your developmental agenda. But once they have emerged also, they need also to graduate into the commercial side, so that once you have actually brought them to that stage, where the commercial banks we're not going to be able to touch them. Once you have brought them to that stage, the commercial banks will also be interested in them because they are now fully fledged businesses that are bankable. So we focus on those, but we need the right mix between the two, sustainability, but at the same time playing in the developmental space.
Well, let's talk about the real economy now. And South Africa, prides itself of being a member of BRICS, for instance. And when we look at the country's economic performance in terms of trade with other countries, we focus on EU, we focus on North America, we talk about China and so forth. But it does not seem like there is enough of intra-African trade taking place between South African-owned companies and the rest of the continent, except for a few investments that have happened in other countries on the continent. What do you think is the challenge behind this poor intra-African trade?
I think it has mainly, Tim, been just the mindset. And a lot is actually happening in that space. For instance, if I were to refer to the PIC, we are invested in a number of African countries in the cement industry in Tanzania. We are invested in EcoBank, which is has got a footprint in about 32 African countries, and a lot of the other countries have actually found that, and I think perhaps in a way the Eurozone crisis have actually reminded us that we have a market in our backyard of close to 1 billion people, and we actually need to go out there. And the relationship with the African states is actually even better than the relationship with the Eurozone and even the West. So we are taking advantage of that, and I think we just haven't made enough strides, because also the African states have also been, because I said it's a mindset, they've also been doing a lot of business themselves with the Euro area, the West, and even Asia. And I think this is an opportunity that we are grabbing with both hands. Our participation in both in the region, SADC, and even in SACU, the discussions are beginning to be about not only being a customs collection, union, but we should also be looking at developing ourselves into a formidable economic force that actually begins to look at building infrastructure, trading amongst ourselves, and it is happening.
Well, the Southern African economic setup, SADC, has got over 300 million people, citizens living in it. And what are the stumbling blocks, and how quickly do you think they can be overcome to establish an integrated economic system for the region?
I think it's first about trying to align our policies, because as you would know, there is the tripartite, with the three regions that have been brought together precisely to begin to look at that and to explore and take advantage of this a market that we have, but at the same time take advantage of the skills set that is actually in this area. it is beginning to happen. Only stumbling blocks have actually been about governance and, building real institutions that we would be able, because if you have institutions in South Africa and our, peers do not have those institutions, then it becomes difficult, to trade or to operate in a space where you actually still need to assist them in building those institutions. And I think they are really warming up to South Africa also, that we should actually lead in that space, but at the same time they themselves, in any relationship, economic relationship, there should be mutual benefit as well.
Mr. Nhlanhla Nene, thanks very much for talking to us.
It's my pleasure.
Much appreciated.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you for joining us and watching this series of the APSIP 10th annual event, where awards were handed out to members of this organization in the financial services sector, as well as views expressed by the Deputy Minister of Finance, Mr. Nhlanhla Nene. We will continue keeping you updated on the opportunities and the growth as well as empowerment that is taking place in this economy. I'm Tim Modise. Till next time.